I don't know what we're dealing here with Brett Brown, but the game plan is atrocious for this team. He wants this team to be a three-point shooting team, but it's not. No one can shoot on this team a three-point, a consistent clip. You have no 40% three-point shooters out there. You have no one that is at a rate that could make this team a threat from deep. This team needs to be getting down low. And I don't know why. We saw it last night. I didn't count it, but I saw a handful of times screens away from the ball or the pick and roll at top. And the only time you saw Embiid finally get into a groove later on is when you had those screens and you had more people open so Embiid could get rid of the ball. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, M. ChadBurn, and as always, running the behind the scenes, making sure we have the smoothest show possible, is Julien Renvoise. Say hello, Julien.
What's up?
There he is, folks. Once again, welcome to the ChadBurn Show, the sports podcast, where we do this all in one take, talking about the news of the week, and of course, with a special focus on my beloved Philly teams. That's right, 76ers, Eagles, Flyers when I watch hockey, and obviously the Phillies. But today's show will be focused on two of those teams. We're going to go not wide outside the sports realm, looking at big topics of the week. We're going to focus on two Philly teams. We're going to talk a little bit about our 76ers and our Eagles. Number one, we have to hit on the 76ers because the 76ers last night, we're recording on Sunday morning, so last night they played the Milwaukee Bucks. Well, it was not good. They decided to come out and put a dookie on the court. That was a pathetic showing from the 76ers, a team that is supposed to be contending for an NBA title. They are not contending for squat right now, folks. This week on Wednesday, I got to go on a post-game show, a live post-game show on YouTube, highlighted by Spotlight Sports Talk. Got to talk Darian, which was a great show, and obviously give it a follow if you have not yet for great 76ers content. But we were talking about how they barely escaped against the Nets without Ben Simmons, what they needed to do to show up against the Milwaukee Bucks to even have a prayer of beating them, and everything we said with them needing to be aggressive, better shot selection, playing better down low, Simmons getting to the hoop, Embiid not being so, I would say, arrogant and constantly pounding the rock without any help. All those things we said they needed to do to beat the Bucks, they did not. The shot selection was abysmal. The play was terrible. The coaching looked awful again. Another thing we talked about on the show was Brett Brown. He's not making a great case for himself. And Ben Simmons played less than 5 minutes before having to leave the game. So there's a lot of red flags, a lot of warnings, a lot of fear coming out, I would say, as 76ers fan base. Everything we'd hoped from them, we just are not getting from them. Last night they shot 35% from the field, whereas the Bucks shot over 50%. I think it was almost 57. Did a great job there. The three-pointers even worse. We were continuing to take shots that we have no hope of making. There were constant air balls. There was rimming. There was everything you could imagine for the shots besides going in. Embiid, once again, was trying to force it down low. He is a dominant player. You scored 17 points, but he's trying to force it down low without really any type of game plan around it. Right now, the Sixers' plan is stale, it's old, and it's just something that doesn't work for the talent they have. Brett Brown has designed it to have everyone sitting on the three-point line with Embiid down low. They give the rock to Embiid. Where Embiid goes, if Embiid draws a double team, he passes outside to someone and takes a three-point shot. That's the plan. That's all they're doing. And it makes it really easy for teams to strategize against because if you can stop Embiid and no one starts shooting well from outside at three, then the game's over. Tobias Harris again had a struggling night. He could not seem to connect with all his mid-range jumpers. His drives to the hoop and the layups seemed to be missing. He scored, I believe, somewhere around 11 points. It's just not what you want to see. The field goal attempts are just abhorrent right now. It's terrible. I can't believe what I'm watching. This team had so much promise coming this season, and right now they're playing at the level of, I would say, an 8th seed in the East. This is a very good division this year. This conference this year is a good conference, and the Sixers are not taking it seriously. They are going to be left out of the first round, I think, at this point. The Nets, who could probably be an 8th or 7th seed, could easily beat the Sixers at this point. I don't think we have a chance that we have to go against the Heat in the first round. We're certainly not going to beat the Bucks in a 7-game series. And there's no hope in taking on the Raptors in a 7-game series. Really, the Sixers have a lot they need to fix. And some of it I'm going to put onus on Embiid. Embiid's the superstar. Embiid's the one we put a lot of pressure on. But Embiid's not performing. I agree his rebounding is doing well. At the beginning of games, he looks dominant because he's able to get the fader jumper. He's able to get kind of the matchups he wants down low. The hook shot looks good. The post play is excellent. I will never fault Embiid for not having great footwork and great post play down low. But as the game wears on and the team gets smart and the team realizes they can't take him one-on-one, they double team, Embiid is still forcing it down low. And he's missing lots of shots. And it's starting to get a point where he needs to get the ball out faster, and they need to give it to people that can score. Embiid can't do this alone, and for some reason he has no faith in the team around him. He really does not seem to have confidence to pass it out ever when he knows he can't get the shot off. Instead, he'll force up a bad shot and just hope it goes in. And the other thing we have to put on this with some onus on Embiid is that while he looks dominant early on in the game, he is looking gassed by the end of the game. The dude looks exhausted, and I get it. He's playing upwards of sometimes 40-plus minutes a game. He's really not getting any rest time. Al Horford's been able to come in with some relief, but in general, because the offense has been so stale and the game plan by Brett Brown is poor, you need Embiid in there to run it. And by the end, the guy cannot keep up with anyone he's with. His defense decreases, and his offensive production decreases as well. We saw at the Nets where he was able to at least push it through and get some foul shots, which is what we need him to do more of. And he's a great foul shot shooter, don't get me wrong. But in general, the ends of the game have just looked weak for the Sixers and have looked weak for Embiid. And Simmons was out again. Simmons left the game early, I believe again from back spasms he was dealing with and why he was out in the Nets game. That's a huge concern because you need Simmons on the court. Some of our best basketball has been played with Simmons out there in point. And if he's not going to be there, then who are you going to fill it? So it looks like Raul Neto might be taking most of it. And Alex Burke has finally shown some promise. So I would say he'll probably take the majority of the playing time away while Simmons is out. And Harris, who's supposed to be the third superstar on this team, should be able to take away some of that, alleviate some of the weight there. But for whatever reason, Harris's play is garbage now. Harris looks like a second-tier player right now these last few games. He's missing layups. He's missing easy shots that he always putting in. And somehow at the Nets, he's got over 20 points. And I don't know how that happened. If you watched it, you thought he was at least only at 10. And in this game, he didn't even get to 15 points. So what we're seeing right now is the third superstar, Harris, doing bad. There's too much work going on Embiid, and therefore he's exhausted by the end. Simmons is injured. And then on top of that, Brett Brown can't seem to coach. I don't know what we're dealing here with Brett Brown, but the game plan is atrocious for this team. He wants this team to be a three-point shooting team, but it's not. No one can shoot on this team a three-point at a consistent clip. You have no 40% three-point shooters out there. You have no one that is at a rate that can make this team a threat from deep. This team needs to be getting down low. And I don't know why. We saw last night, I didn't count it, but I saw a handful of times screens away from the ball or the pick and roll at top. And the only time you saw Embiid finally get into a groove later on is when you had those screens and you had more people open so Embiid could get rid of the ball. But instead, we constantly have the same deal. Pass it down low. Let Embiid work. Let him draw the double team pass to the open person. Great plan, but the open person needs to make the shot. And right now, that's not happening. We have Jefferson is obviously getting a streaky here and there. Tybalt is sometimes streaky and gets a few runs. Harris is now a streaky player, so there's no consistency on the outside. And you have these guys just chucking up three after three after three, and it's not going in. I don't know what we need to do to get this through Brett Brown's head, but can we please have a pick and roll at top with Embiid and with Harris? Harris drive, pass the ball off to Embiid, lob it up for the alley-oop. Anything to get some creativity in this offense. For whatever reason, we can't score. This is a good team on paper. And right now, they are not matching up to their potential. I I've been a supporter of Brett Brown for a long time. I thought he was dealt a bad deck of hands with, a bad hand of cards when he had the bad team, when the team was obviously had no talent on it. The team was in rebuild mode. It was the trust the process era, and Brett Brown had to do a lot with little. But now, the wealth of the talent he has there, he can't do anything with it. With Simmons and Embiid, they both look terrible when they're on the court at the same time because for whatever reason, Brett Brown has Embiid sitting at way high so that Simmons can drive low. But why can't you do a pick and roll with Simmons and Embiid? Why doesn't that work? Why is the movement not, there's no way to create any type of barrier or way to get defensive offensive players to create open players? It's madness. And it's the same stupid offensive plays every game that we're losing in, that aren't working. Yet we continue to go back to that. And then we see on the court, all of a sudden you have Horford and Embiid at the same time. Well, if Embiid and Simmons are both going to clog up the paint, what is Horford and Embiid going to do? At what point do you think maybe we should spread a little more, or maybe we should have the screens down low for the wing players to pop out? Maybe we need to get Harris to not be taking some outside shots, but warm them up down low. I mean, it's just, there has to be something else we can do here. And we've all been trying to stand by Brett Brown. We've all been trying to say, give him some chance, but we can't anymore. The writing's on the wall. He has to go. And Elton Brand, if he wants to keep his job, has to either find some from spot shooters that can actually shoot deep and do something to help alleviate the pressure down low and get stop. So the defense right now are just blocking up down the paint. That's all they're doing. They're just waiting for us to come down because we can't shoot. But we need some threat out there just to pull people away. Elton Brand's got to go too if we can't fix this. This is a first-round playoff team right now. That's it. And maybe if we get Simmons back, we can make a push for a second round. But that's it. We're not going to Eastern Conference Championship, and we're sure as hell not going to the NBA Finals with this team right now. Not the way they're coached, not the way they're playing, with Embiid getting in fights with the fans. Embiid, get off of Twitter. Stop. We love your personality, but you can't take this all personal. Fans are going to boo you when you suck. Okay? You suck right now. The team sucks right now. You have one of the worst road records in the NBA. And you're trying to contend for a final? I get it. You've one of the best home records in the league. But if you can't play a lick on the road, you're not going anywhere. So it's time to shape up or ship out, okay? I'm done with this. If we need to move, we need to get more talent, fine. Maybe we need to move Embiid. I think the future's with Simmons. We keep him because we've seen how dominant he can be, even without a jump shot, how much better he makes players around them. Embiid does not seem to make players better around him because the offense needs to go through him, but for whatever reason, no one else can score when he's out there. Brett Brown is focused all on Embiid, and that's it. There's no backup plan. When he's off and the team's playing, they're not playing well at all without him either. All the hope rests on that, and that's not going to work for a championship run. And don't get started on the defense. This is supposed to be one of the top defensive teams in the league, and they can't stop anything. The Nets, without Kyrie Irving, with basically the whole back, with Dinwiddie leading it, with DeAndre Jordan, the defense was so bad. It was so bad. I don't know what we're seeing here. They're laying over 50% of field goals. They're letting them shoot threes. The switches are terrible. They're losing their men off on the three-point line. They're letting them just shoot it. The Bucks, newsflash, one of the top three-point shooting teams in the league. So why are we leaving players just sitting out there? I have no words right now for this team. No words. What's so frustrating too is next thing you know, they beat a team like the Clippers. So I bet coming out the road, they're going to beat another top 3 team. We're all going to go, okay, I guess it's all fixed. But then they're going to go on a losing streak again. I am so fed up with this. I'm so frustrated by how they're playing that there needs to be big changes for this to work out. It has to. Because the Bucks are a much better team right now. They are the superior team beyond a doubt. And, I'll probably go on another postgame show, and I'm going to be mad there, too. It's just ridiculous trying to understand what's going on in this organization. They were supposed to be our hope after the Eagles had a bad season. And they're nowhere near that. And Simmons better get healthy because we need him desperately. And Harris, get in the gym to start shooting shots because right now, you're missing everything, man. It's brutal. Our best defensive player right now is Tybal, and he's coming off the bench. Embiid, we see at the beginning, but he is getting so tired by the end, which is another thing that he promised he would work on the offseason. He said he would get healthier. He said he would eat better. He said he'd get his cardio up. It's not happening. The dude's exhausted. Is Giannis exhausted? No, Giannis last night in the fourth quarter was starting at 3-point line and running like a train to the hoop, and no one could stop him. Embiid got knocked over by freaking Giannis going so fast, and Embiid's got weight on him. That's what we need Embiid to be. We need him to be a Giannis. We need him to have the ability to drive from the 3-point line to the hoop, to show that freakish athleticism that he shows throughout the game, but disappears by the fourth quarter. I'm out of words. There's a breaking point soon here, folks, and this team could very much drop off a cliff if it doesn't fix up. The locker room, apparently, the culture is bad. The leadership has been bad. Brett Brown doesn't seem to be able to garner the respect for his players, just the buddy. We need a tough coach. People talk about Mark Jackson coming in there. Maybe. He helped set up the Warriors before Steve Kerr took over. So I think, that might be a team that we need to get in. There's someone to hold accountability of these players. Well, until then, we're not going to win anything. That's just the case, folks. Oh, God. I'm already exhausted going over that. It's crazy. And we haven't got to our second part of the show, the Eagles. Anyway, so that's the 76ers in a nutshell. Hopefully we can see better going down. But Brett Brown's going to be gone, folks. He's not going to be given much more else. He's on a tight leash right now. Finally, let's move to our second team we want to talk about today in Philadelphia, and is in their offseason. And we're starting to think about next season, and I can't wait because I need football to be here so I don't have to worry about basketball anymore. Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah. The player we need to talk about is Alshon Jeffery. And I believe the reports came out, I'd say a week, maybe even longer ago, about at least 2 weeks ago, where they were saying Alshon Jeffery is probably going to go. There were talks about, issues in the locker room and everything. And now reports came out this week with some more details about those comments, how, Alshon Jeffery has said he and Carson just never saw eye to eye. They couldn't really get on the same page with it. There always seemed to be friction between the two, which was pretty evident on the field. I feel like when I saw the report, I was not shocked. There was definitely no bombs. It was more just confirmation. We knew that a lot of the trash talking on Wentz, a lot of the stuff the criticism coming out of the locker room, we all believed it was Alshon Jeffery, and it's good to see that that's confirmed and that Alshon Jeffery was the kind of the person, I would say, stirring the pot, building the discontent, trying to show weaknesses in Carson Wentz's leadership. What's interesting is that no other wide receiver seems to have this problem. Deshaun Jackson seems to be very much on the same page with Wentz, really likes him. All those young players that came in off the practice squad played great with Wentz because of his leadership, because they believed in him. They talked about his leadership constantly every week. We've heard, great things about how Wentz has, built relationships with all these young players and giving them opportunities with Sanders, with Boston Scott coming in, the new young rookie running backs, and kind of build a reputation there. The linemen are always standing in back with him. They believe in him. So it really was Alshon Jeffery the one, and who knows? Maybe it could be he thought he was focusing too much on Ertz, that he wasn't, as he kind of commented a couple times, that he wasn't, checking the ball down enough. It was the 50-50 balls he didn't trust. But whatever it is, I think we all agree Alshon Jeffery has to go. We can't have someone like that in the locker room who is going to be anti-Wentz, anti our quarterback that we have for the future. It's not changing. Wentz is going to be there for years to come. We need players that are going to buy into Wentz and buy into leadership. Wentz tries every year to bring the wide receivers down to his home. They go to Texas. They go up to Minnesota. They bond. We've seen great success. In 2017, he did the same thing. They all came out. We had one of the greatest runs we've seen in a while in Eagles history. Carson Wentz had an MVP season. He gets injured, and all of a sudden, Jeffrey's against him. So who knows? Maybe Jeffrey just was into Foles, and the Foles was his guy. And when Foles went out, he didn't believe in Wentz, and Wentz struggled, and that's what ended it. But whatever it is, Jeffrey just doesn't believe in Wentz. And I think the Eagles need to take on the mentality that Seattle did. You had a lot of people in the Seattle locker room on the defensive side especially who weren't fans of Russell Wilson, who weren't on the Russell Wilson bandwagon. And what Seattle did is they shipped him out. They said, we need a locker room that's going to be around our quarterback, around our leader, around our captain. And that's who we need to support and build a team that is going to be with him. And we saw the success that he had this year. There was a higher up in offensive production for Russell Wilson. He had some help in the running game. The wide receivers were all on the same page with him. The defense backed him up and believed in him. The team as a whole was happier, had better cohesiveness. Just camaraderie was better. And that's something I'd like to bring over to the Eagles. I think they need to copy that. They need to look at that playbook and say, hey, if Wentz is our guy, if this is the one we believe in, if he's going to be our quarterback of the future, then we need a core that is built around Wentz. So we've got the Ertz support. We know Ertz obviously is back him. Greg Ward seems to love Carson Wentz. I think Goddard's got his back. Nelson's probably going to be gone just because talent alone, we don't want him anymore. And Alshon's out, and Deshaun Jackson likes him. So, Alshon, we had a great run. Thank you so much on the amazing help you gave on that Super Bowl run. I don't think I have any hate towards him. I don't have any distrust towards him. I think he did everything he could for this team, but it just didn't work out. Sometimes personalities don't get along. We've all been there. We don't like some people. We can't explain it. We just don't like them. And that's totally all right. And Alshon Jeffery is absolutely allowed to not like Wentz. It's fine. Maybe it's too redneck for him. I don't know. Wentz is all big in this hunting and, from North Dakota and all that kind of stuff. Maybe it just didn't vibe with him. Who knows? It could just been, personalities, maybe the religion thing too much. There's a lot. But I think it's at the same time, it never got to the point that they couldn't be in the same room together. I think it's just a wide receiver and a quarterback really need to be in sync on the same page at all times, right? From the scrambling drills to the trust that if I throw the ball up there, you're going to get it, to understanding what the quarterback's thinking. And if you can't be on that same wavelength, then it's never going to be successful, right? That's the most important relationships between those wide receivers and that quarterback. So if it's not working, thank you, Jeffrey, for at least coming out. I think at least at this point, I'm happier to see this than what was happening before with the unnamed sources and people, trashing Wentz to the media. Like, that pissed me off. That I thought was weak. That's weak on Jeffrey's part. Because if you're going to act like a snake and you're going to act like a snitch in a locker room, then no one's going to want you around. And in fact, shows poor on your character and will show poor on you as you move to other teams. If you're going to do that and start reporting to the media, other quarterbacks might not trust you in the locker room. So I think that was a bit of shame to hear. I think that's the only critique I have is how he handled it early on. But at least now it's in the open. The team knows what's going to go on. They'll move forward with it. They'll eat the dead money and they'll get rid of Jeffrey. And, maybe we can build some really young talent around Wentz. I think bringing in Demarcus Robinson would be awesome from the Chiefs. I think that's a good one. I'm trying to think of the other wide receivers tied to us this year that we're talking about. I think it was Sanders was obviously 49ers. The big one I know about is Robinson, and that one I'd be pretty psyched on to have come to the team. I think he could be a huge talent, obviously. Hey, if we could snag AJ Green, that'd be amazing. Love that. If we could trade Alshon Jeffery over there and bring him to the team, that'd be huge up in talent. I don't want Antonio Brown. I know he's out there. He's a free agent. I think if Alshon Jeffery couldn't get along with Wentz, there's no way Antonio Brown is going to get along with Wentz. That would be an absolute nightmare. But there's a lot of talent in the draft as well. I think it's Higgs from the Clemson is being tied to possibly being available for the Eagles. I think Ruggs, if he's available, I don't think he will drop that low, but he'd be an incredible pickup for the Eagles. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to build that wide receiver core, not necessarily just in free agency, but through the draft and some trades. So I think it's a good move. We got to move on Jeffrey. It's sad to see him go, but at the same time, can't have him in the locker room dealing with that. It's crazy, too. I mean, we all thought at first that that was a great relationship, especially in 2017. But times change. New people come in, and next thing you know, that's your guy, and can't be friends anymore. Who cares, though? I think they'll both be able to move forward, and it'll be fine, and maybe some time apart, they can eventually go back and reminisce on the good times they had. But yeah, so Alshon Jeffery gone, Nigel Bradham, and so that was the main story, obviously, but while we're on the Eagles, talk about Nigel Bradham leaving. Obviously, we're going to avoid his contract. Great run with Nigel Bradham. Sorry you couldn't be healthy for the whole year, but also thank you so much for everything you gave this team. I think we're going to probably see Peters eventually moving on. I think that's got to go. Obviously, team, it's not going to work out. But I think we have a great young core coming next year. I would love if we get Darius Slay from the Lions. I know the Eagles have inquired about him for cornerback help. That would be huge. I think we were talking about Peterson out in the Cardinals, also been talked to, a little old. But I mean, at this point, really any help there, cornerback and wide receiver, will be the focus for the Eagles this year, and shoring up the D-line. I'm not really worried about linebackers. That's not our focus right now. But wide receiver, cornerback, and maybe some D-line help. I go wide receiver 1, cornerback 2, D-line 3. So we'll see what happens in the draft. But yeah, sad to see Jeffery go, but better overall for the locker room and for the team. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, folks. Wow, time flies, though, right now. I mean, gosh, 20 minutes talking Sixers and the Eagles. I totally lost my focus there. I thought we were going to have so much more time to go on, but I think we're going to wrap it up here. As always, I love getting on here, getting to vent. I think this one was a lot more about me venting about the Sixers and other stuff, but hey, you know what? Sometimes we got to go out there and do that. I hope we're able to create some at least entertaining content for you guys to listen to and watch on YouTube and on Instagram. As always, if you ever want to get in contact with me, you can reach out to by email at chadburn.show@gmail.com. Again, that's chadburn.show@gmail.com. You also DM me on Instagram at ChadBurn Show, or on our Facebook group, ChadBurn Show. And obviously, you can comment on YouTube if there's anything you'd like to talk about, any questions you have. We're now streaming on Google, iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher now. Brand new on Stitcher, so be sure to listen to us on all those platforms. Give us a like if you like what you're hearing. Leave a comment. Let us know what you're thinking about the show. If you like what you're seeing on YouTube, please subscribe. And always check back on Instagram. That's where we're posting updates from the show, clips from the most recent episode, and letting you know when we're dropping the next episode. This one obviously airing this Monday at 6 p.m. But yeah, that's always you can contact with us. We appreciate you listening in. It's a joy for us, so we really love having you on. If you want to reach out, have questions, want us to talk about stuff on the show, feel free to ping us. But until next time, have a good evening and good night, folks.